Yo, what's up, my G?
What's up, my man?
Hey, how are you, Alex?
Doing good, bro. I'm chilling.
I'm glad to have you here, man. Thanks for joining us here. Everybody who's watching, listening on the shock treatment. Once again, my boy Alex has came to join us. God bless him.
Hello,
Uh,
everybody.
listen, I'm here just dabbling in a little bit of wine, as you can see.
I see that. I see that.
We're just trying to be a little bit more sophisticated up in this motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little
Hey,
bit.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because let me explain. I don't know if you know this or not, but the pinky up actually originates from King Louis the 13th, the king of France. And the reason he did that was because he had so much pressure going into his pinky that he always had to put it up. Now, the reason he had that pressure and a lot of the side effects that came along with it was duly because of syphilis. If you didn't know that,
Huh.
syphilis. Now, because of course the king started doing it. Okay, obviously that caught on pretty quickly, and before you knew it, everybody and their mother was trying to do it as well.
So everyone was just following us.
A syphilis king, dude.
Syphilis. Someone whose brain was deteriorated on syphilis. So they were just following him. You
That's
know who?
it, man.
You know who else deteriorated on syphilis is what's this guy's name? Al Capone.
No fucking way.
Yeah, bro.
Al Capone.
Yeah, Al Capone is brain deteriorated on syphilis. It's funny because syphilis is like a, and I don't know, I don't know the medical like terms and all that, but from my understanding, is that it's a very curable, like very easily like curable drug. You just take a curable disease. Just
Yeah.
take some pills for like whatever amount of time
Well,
it's
I'm
done.
sure back in that time it wasn't curable.
Oh
Or
yeah,
they
I
didn't have
mean
the
they
medication.
did out the cure, but the thing is, Al Capone, like around his time, he could have, I think, from my understanding, he could have cured himself, but he didn't take himself to the doctors to go get checked because he's a fucking gangster.
Yeah.
Gangsters don't go to the doctors. What are you talking about?
They got their own doctor, and that doctor probably doesn't know anything else but sewing and fucking healing up, dude. You know what I mean?
Someone can fact check me on that, but I'm gonna believe my story whether it's true or
I
not.
I don't care what you guys say. You can leave a comment if you want. Listen, I always imagined that Al Capone, because he was the badass that he was, he probably rotted in jail. You know what I mean? Because they finally caught up. I don't know if you've seen that movie with Kevin Costner. And Al Capone was Robert De Niro. It was
That,
you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, that's the Untouchables.
The Untouchables.
I
Exactly.
haven't watched it, but I know it's fucking good though.
Bro, one thing you know about me is that I love fucking movies and movie quotes and shit. And
Yeah.
that movie had one of the best movie quotes that I'll never forget. It was, I guess somebody came to Al Capone and just told him, exactly who we're after him, and Robert De Niro goes, "I want his family dead. I want him in the ground. I want him in the grave." I was like, God. Damn, this motherfucker's going off,
It's
dude.
going ham, yo. Homeboy's going ham. Yo, what movie I watched for the first time the other day? Geez, what's the name of it? Donnie Brasco. That was a good movie.
Donnie Brasco
Um,
what's God?
Al
It's
Capone,
Al Pacino. It's
Al
Al
Pacino.
Pacino and Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And fucking,
yeah.
and that's a true story, yo. Donnie
That's
Brasco was,
hilarious.
yeah, dude. It's like I used to watch I like that type of shit. I watch documentaries on that type of shit, and yeah, and what's it called? Yeah, like Donnie Brasco was Joe Pistone or something like that.
Yeah,
Like he was
yeah.
yeah, he's an FBI agent, Joe Pistone, and he infiltrated in like the Italian mob, and like that was like the first time that like the FBI actually got like I think he was FBI, but that's the first time like law enforcement officials actually got a scope of how big and how deep the Italian mob went, how deep its roots were embedded into like politics and just a bunch of shit. Like before
Right.
that, yeah, before then it was like, oh sure, the Italian mob, yeah, they're out there, but they're not that big. But then after that whole thing, they're like, whoa, dude, this shit's a lot
We
deeper.
have to fucking reconfigure our situation here because they're probably. I mean, organized crime is called organized for a reason. These guys were in everything. And listen, because it was La Cosa Nostra, nuestra familia. It was family before anything. You know what I mean? These
Yeah.
motherfuckers had it down to a T where they would not betray each other, not for nobody, just because they knew that they were blood in and blood out.
Yeah,
You
what's the
know?
term? What's the term that they have in Italian that's like, oh, like you don't speak or something like that? Like it's called God, he said no on the tip of my tongue. It's this Italian phrase.
You think it's an Italian? It's an Italian language. It's an
No,
Italian
it's
dialect.
no, it's in Italian. It's in Italian. It's an Italian phrase that the mafia use, and it pretty much means just don't talk. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
forgot Santi Morta or something. I forgot, but I'll look it up another time. But it's
Uh,
a but I mean they go by a very strict code and very strict like I mean at least when the Italian mob first came out, especially like when Lucky Luciano put together the commission, and they
yeah,
have
yeah,
like
yeah.
the old
The
school,
family.
yeah, they brought together the five families, and then also they
If
brought
I'm correct, it was Lucky Luciano who brought together the five families of the five boroughs, right?
yeah, and, yeah, for the five families, but I think each family had like the stakes in different boroughs and all that. So like it wasn't like one family, one borough. I think like because I think most of
They
like
all intermingled.
exactly, but you the central idea is correct though. Like Lucky Luciano, he brought together all the families because I mean they're all warring against each other, and Lucky Luciano's like, look, we're all in this to make money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We all got big heads to get it, this and that, whatever, but we're all in this to make money. So why fight against each other? Let's
Right.
split our territories up, let's split our rackets up, let's split our everything up, and let's work together. And they had a commit. You know what's crazy? They had a commissions, and the commission was supposed to be people like high ranked people in the mafia that I think they have one person in the commission to represent each family, but they're supposed to be like kind of like politically isolated in a sense, just to like not have like just so whenever like any decisions are made, then not it's not necessarily like they have a strong incentive, but it's more like they're trying to make decisions based on like logic and what's
But
best.
at the same time, it was kind of like a democracy, was it not?
Oh yeah, yeah. So the commission was together, and I guess and again
And
some of
apparently, I mean, from what I've seen on, like, for example, Goodfellas or whatever the case may be, you couldn't make a move on a made guy unless you got permission from the old heads,
yeah
from the
yeah,
bosses.
that's the thing. You couldn't whack a made member unless you get permission from the commission. And to get permission from the commission, you gotta like almost state your case. You gotta be like, this
Right.
is a reason why I want to take this guy out because he's not supposed to be on my territory and he keeps fucking shit up. And I got my whole thing going and I'm respecting the rules, but this guy ain't respecting the rules. So everyone in the commission got to agree. And the thing is, someone on the commission who has ties to that family, who that person may be a part of, they got to agree to it too. So it gets politically like
Oh my
insane and crazy.
god,
And then
bro.
one of the most like interesting thing that I loved about like how the Italian mob ran was they only accepted like Sicilian blood like people to be made members. Now you can be
Yeah,
associated or
you couldn't
whatever.
be a made guy. You couldn't be an Irish guy and be made.
Yeah, you
You
can't
had
be
to be
high.
fucking
Yeah,
a Sicilian blood.
but Lucky Luciano, when he created a commission, and he created like and he put everything together. One of his good friends was Meyer Lansky, and he was a Jewish gangster. And Meyer Lansky, I think it was some other Jewish gangsters. I'm not sure Meyer Lansky was a part of this group or not, but he definitely had big ties. But what happens? A group of Jewish gangsters who couldn't be made members, but they were very close to the Italian mob. They created what's called Murder Inc. And Murder Inc. was just as a group of Italian mobsters, and probably some Irish or whatever, but predominantly Italian mobsters.
But they were
Who,
Jewish, right?
yeah, they were Jew, they were Jews, they were Jews.
Jewish, Italian.
I think predominantly most of them were just Jewish, like feel Jewish, but there was probably some people in there that were half Jewish, whatever, maybe maybe Italian, maybe Irish, the Jew like a group of Jewish people, Jewish gangsters came up with this group, and what they did is that they just carried out hits for the mob. So imagine that the mob is ran like a democracy, and the mob hires this fucking group of people called Murder Inc. And they work like a fucking business. They were like, and they say, hey, I got a contract. I need to take a hit on this person. And someone from Murder Inc. like, you know what? I'll take that contract. Whatever. It blows me away just how like, I haven't like.
You know what's crazy to me? I'm gonna tell you right now. To find out, we're almost a little bit deceived off of these Italian movies because we're seeing all the dirt but without that being known, because I've never seen an Italian, and I've watched all the gangster movies. I haven't seen a time where it's a Jewish person taking out the hits, but to find out that it's the Jewish mafia that are predominantly the hitmen is something else entirely. I mean, I
It's
would have never suspected that.
well, like I think the Italian mob they also had hitmen as well. You know what I'm saying? Like within the mob, there are people who are made men who was I think like each like Italian mobster like they had their own thing. There's some of them were like jewelry, like some of them like were robbery, like robbing, like like fucking
They were really good at
yeah,
robbery, and
robbery. Some
some
people
were
were
good at
yeah stealing jewels. Some people were running
people had their
stage work.
niche.
Yeah,
People had their
so
niche.
some of them are murder. Like some of them were hitmen. But the thing is, I think Murder Inc. was one of the one of the best known like one of the best known like groups that
See,
like
that's one of the things I haven't really looked too much into was the Jewish mafia, like the Murder Inc. And you kind of think about it if you look back at New York, it was such a melting pot back in those times when it was either the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, this was New York at its infancy stage. I mean, I'm not going to say its infancy because that's not what it was born, but
but
I'm going to say that that's when everybody, all the immigrants started to come in, and people started to make a name for themselves, and that's where the mafia was born. Am I wrong?
yeah, no, you're right. I think a big part of it has a big part of like the formation of the Italian mob has a lot to do with the 5 points
Right. Bro.
neighborhood. Which if you ever
Yeah.
watch the Gangs of New York, the Gangs of New York takes place in the
Right.
5 points, and I think that story is supposed to take place historically before like because that story has like, a lot of Irish. That story tells a story about the Irish coming in and the people fighting against the Irish and the Catholics and whatnot. But after that, historically, I think a few years after that's when Italian immigrants started flooding in. Because at first I was thinking of Irish, and then it was Italian
Dude,
immigrants.
that's the story that I'm talking about. I think that's that proves a perfect example. When you said the Gangs of New York, that's its infancy stage. I think that's when it was just being born, just
Of
when
like organized
everything was
crime, of like
right.
organized crime. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right when it comes down to like organized crime. Like I think that you're right. Like that around that time was like the infancy, the start, the evolution of organized crime. Because before then, it was just little cliques and little gangs going around and kicking each other's asses. You know what I'm saying? Like doing racketeering or whatever, or not racketeering, extortion or whatever. That's when,
Extortion.
yeah, extortion and all that. And also, like, New York City is just a crazy city. It has a rich fucking history and all this type of shit, especially crime. Hell's Kitchen, Hell's Kitchen now is known for like being that that neighborhood, but there's a lot of of course there's a lot of restaurants out there, and that's on the
Bro.
it's closer to up. Go on.
Speaking of which, Hell's Kitchen, because I just saw this movie recently. And it's a fairly recent movie. I mean, it's nothing like back in the days of The Godfather or Scarface, or the one with Johnny Depp, and whatever the case may be. But this one was about the three ladies, right? And all their husbands have gone to jail. It's with Melissa McCartney. It's with that lady off of The Handmaid's Tale. I can't remember her name for the life of me. And that black chick, which was God, she's so funny. She's a comedian. I forgot her name. Here's what happens. There are matrons of Hell's Kitchen. Okay, they are literally have taken their husbands have gone to jail. They've taken over for them, and at this point now they've taken over every side of the business, whether it's extortion, whether it's protection, whether it's everything. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a
Nah.
very fairly recent movie.
Oh, so I was about to ask when did it come out? Nah, I've never seen it, but I mean, shoot me the name. I'll check it out. I love gangster movies, bro, especially good ones.
Dude,
That I like.
dude,
I like good
it was
gangster.
really good.
I like good gangster movies that like I don't know, like I like history and shit like that. So I like to watch movies that portray like things of how closely of how they should really are.
Right,
With
right.
of course they gotta
Well,
exaggerate. They gotta put some Hollywood into it, whatever. But like
let me put this into perspective here, because something tells me, and I've always thought about this, but whether it was Whitey Bulger. You remember that movie with Johnny Depp?
I never watched it, but I know about it.
Oh
I know
my
about the
God,
story. That's
you are
just crazy.
missing out,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, I
All
know.
right, whether it was Whitey Bulger, whether it was Goodfellas is just a portrayal, but I'm sure you've seen The Irishman on Netflix.
Yeah, I seen The
Now,
Irishman.
that is much more of the surreal ass fucking mobster movie that I've ever seen him because they connect the dots. What's the director's name? You know the
Michael Sikorsky or whatever his name
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Scorsese.
yeah, yeah,
Scorsese.
yeah.
Scorsese did a fine job in just trying to connect the dots. If these things are real, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like I mean, the way it played out can be more realer because not only did John F. Kennedy die, but his brother, who was
Ooh,
the Attorney General at that
yeah,
time, he died as well. And that all had to do with the Teamsters, with all
yeah.
that
Oh my
correlating
God.
together. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you can really portray that and connect those dots so efficiently. The
There's
way that he did it was so smooth and not really be able to say, you know what? I don't know if that really did happen. That sounds like it fucking did happen, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that movie, I like. I love that movie. Just like the way they filmed it, the way the movie is, and the way everything is like portrayed. It feels realer to me than like
Than
again, like
any
I
other
mentioned,
gangster movie that you've seen, I'm sure.
the most of them. Well, then again, I see there's a lot of good gangster movies out, and I've seen a lot of good ones. Well, I've seen a decent amount of good ones, and like those are really good. So I would say they're like the good ones, and those other gangster movies that are just like they're just more action drama packed, or just like
But here's
this
what
is
I'm saying.
they're
It
boring me and
was it
shit.
was way more realistic. The Irishman was way more
Yeah.
real. It didn't have too much action. It was just telling a story,
But
dude.
it
It
builds
was
up.
telling a story.
But what I love about those type of movies, the dialogue and the story builds up, and when those action parts happen, it means so much
Oh
more.
yeah. Oh
Especially in a
yeah.
movie like that, when there's like a lot of that movie that there was a lot of historical like things that you went on with that movie, a little historical facts, and then also there's some things that are assumed, like the scene where he guns down what's that guy's name? Jesus, the one of the mobster that was fucking very arrogant. Jeez, I forgot the guy's name.
Harvey Keitel.
No,
Harvey
when he guns it,
Keitel.
if he guns him down, yeah, it's when he guns him down in the restaurant, right?
Oh, are you talking about The Godfather?
No, no, no. I'm talking about
Oh, The
the Irish.
Irishman.
Yeah, the Irishman. I forgot that the guy's name is on the tip of my tongue. It's something man or something like that. But anyways, that guy actually got murdered at that same restaurant. They portrayed that scene. So historically
They
they
did
got
it
it
in the
right.
same restaurant.
Yeah, like I mean, the story was Jesus. I forgot. I don't know all these names. I don't know the names by heart. But that guy who he murdered. Um, that the reason why that guy had a hit taken out of him is because earlier, and I don't think they even portrayed this part in the movie, but it happened in the movie. Is that that guy took made it like caught out a hit on one of the mob bosses, and that actually happened in real life. One of the mob bosses for I think it was the Colombo family. One of the mob bosses
Oh,
was he was assassinated at a rally, like at this Irish like pride rally, this Irish rally that they were having like civil rights but for Irish people, and he was gunned down in his rally by a black man, and that black man ended up getting killed there. and and like you don't put a hit on a mob boss, you just don't do that,
right,
you know what I'm
right,
saying?
right, right.
So it allegedly was
Like
that guy that took the hit out on him, and what's it called? What happened was there was a hit put on him.
on the
There was
on the on the black guy on the
no
assassinator.
on the person who hired the hitman,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
he was killed, and this happened in real life. He killed, I think it was a Clam House or whatever the fuck the restaurant's name. He was killed at like it was on his birthday, and he was out partying, and he was out going out to different bars and just crazy, just like how we would fucking go out partying
Jesus.
and shit like that. And he went to the Clam House or something like that, which is in like Little Italy in Manhattan. And he was and like a gunman that came into the restaurant and started shooting. At first, he shot his bodyguard, and then shot him. Historically, because someone can like fact check me there, but the idea is she did get
Yo,
shot
well,
inside
here's
there, and
what
he ran out the restaurant, and he died on the street, and they portrayed that in the film. You know what I'm saying? And that's fucking
And
crazy.
that's dude, that's movie magic right there for you. I mean, only Hollywood can portray it the way it is, and and getaways, and it's impactful the way they do it.
Yeah.
But here's the point I wanted to lead up to, okay? Because and let me just say first off to all the audience who's watching this shit, and we're not here fucking movie magic professionals. We're not gonna know all the names. You could check it for yourself. Whatever we're talking about, you could check it for yourself. Here's what I can tell you, and this is what the point that I really wanted to get into, and this is what I'm sure you guys will find interesting as much as I find interesting, and as much as my boy Alex finds interesting. Um, now, if we think about it in this time, in this day and age, right? There, I'm sure you know this, Alex. There was a period, there was an era of the mob and the mafia that existed, right? And it went so smoothly, and a lot of motherfuckers got caught. But I'm gonna tell you one thing: there was a lot more motherfuckers that didn't get caught. Now, what do you think happened to those people? You think those people just no? Like, listen, I hate to be the guy who spits out conspiracies, bro, but this isn't conspiracy. I mean, it is a conspiracy. I'm not a theorist about it. It has to be not only a coincidence, but it has to be truthful, because to be able to succeed that long as a syndicate, as a joined union of mobsters, of philanthropists who dealt in the dirty and the criminal, right? And were able to succeed so long. There had to be a point in time where the feds or the government said, you know what, hey, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them, dog. You know what I'm saying? There
Wait.
had, and this is me speculating on something that may or may not be,
So wait,
but
what are you saying? Like, you think that the feds like are like kind of like joining, like not?
at a point in time, here's what I'm saying. Here's what came down. Here's what happened. There was a meeting between the either the bosses of the five boroughs and some of the people who weren't caught, and the feds. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it on The Irishman. You remember at the end of the movie when the feds caught up with the Irishman and they were like, "Yo, just tell me all your people are dead. You're already old. Just tell me so we can give this family peace." And he kept his word, and he didn't say a fucking thing. You remember that
Yeah.
in The Irishman? He didn't say a fucking thing, even though he could have ratted out his boys. Everybody was dead anyway. He could no, but that just goes to show you these boys were smarter than the feds. They
Well,
kept their shit centralized so. No, well, hold on, let me finish, Alex. They kept their shit centralized so well that nobody was ever to catch them. Now there were some families that went down, and this is what I'm assuming. There were some families that went down. There was a hitman that snitched everybody else out. But the other leaders of the fucking other barrels were so smooth that the feds could not catch them. And so what are the feds going to do? Listen, we know that you're doing this shit. We can't prove it. There's no way we can catch you. So I'm sure there was a meeting between them that said, you know what? If we can't beat you guys, we'll join you guys. We'll actually legitimize yourselves, or whatever the case may be. We'll drop it as it is. Or Alex, was it a situation where maybe all the family decided, you know what, we've gotten away with so much, let's just drop everything? I don't think that's the way it was. If you're that deep in it, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's hard to get out. Am I wrong?
well, the mob is. I guess is what you're trying to get at. Like, I mean, to piggyback on that, the mob is still active. I mean, it's probably not. I wouldn't say this is the reason where I'm getting my knowledge from. It's just from like interviews that I've seen and shit that I read all that. But from based on what it seems like to me is like the mob is certainly still active, but the mob is what's it called it's what's the best way? It's just not. It's not as like it's not as prominent as it used to be. Is it either two things? Either number one is not as prominent and not as like deep as it used to be, or they are gotten so much more clever with what they're doing to make money that you just don't notice it. Now, what's happening, especially since the age of technology and this age of information, is that crimes are different now. You know what I'm saying? Back in the 1920s, between the 1920s to the 1960s, even past the 70s, creeping onto the 80s, You know what I'm saying? Like, the crime was extortion, the crime was racketeering, the crime was robbing shit. But no one fucking robs bank anymore. No one does any of that shit no more. Like that's like old
It's
school
heavy
fucking crime.
risk. It's heavy
It's
risk.
heavy risk, and it's like, and like nowadays it's little return, but now it's about, it's about, you know, like fraud and shit like that. Yo, like I heard about a documentary on Netflix about um this big scandal that happened not even that long ago. This happened probably a couple years ago, bro. Of the scandal that happened with McDonald's, when McDonald's did like the whole and McDonald's is a whole the whole monopoly thing where you fucking peel off the things and get it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep.
There's a whole scandal that's tied to that huge scandal with the people that were involved in it like deeply, that they were like fucking the system over to fucking collect those rewards and getting money. And guess who was fucking behind it? One of the five families, one of the classic five families. So the
Get
families
out
are
of
still,
here.
dude.
Get out of here.
Yeah, the families are still running, and it's so crazy how deep like these families. And it's not just the five families in New York, the Colombo, the Genovese, and the other ones that but it's also families all across the America. I'm living in Tampa right now, and Tampa actually had the Traficante family, and that's actually a very uh,
That's a Cuban family, isn't it?
no, that's an Italian family. Now, little do people,
Traficante means
Traficante.
trafficker.
Yeah, but that's an Italian mob family though. I'm not, maybe it means the same thing in Italian, because Italian is a very similar. There's a lot of phrases and words that are very similar to Spanish as well. But Traficante is an Italian mob. So I mean, Tampa. Just a quick history thing. Tampa back in the 1920s was big. It's getting a lot of people coming, a lot of immigrants coming from Cuba, and a lot of immigrants coming from Italy. And what happens is that different Italian families created, like, their own crime organizations out here in the 1920s, 1930s, doing, like, the typical crime shit they'll do back then. Bootlegging was a huge one. I didn't even bring it up before. That was a huge one. And Tampa was actually a big fucking big in
Right.
bootlegging and cigar making. That's why you have the cigar factories out here in
Oh,
Ybor
you're
City.
absolutely right. I'm just reading it right now. Like
Oh yeah,
it started it started with Charlie Wall in the 1920s, who
mm,
hired he employed Italians and Cubans. The first Italian gang was the Antinori, and apparently he overtook him.
yeah.
From what I'm reading.
And eventually, as you keep reading on, the family that became the winner out of all of them is a Traficante family. Now, to fast forward, I can go through a
Well,
lot of
that's where it originated from. Yeah.
so to fast forward through that, right? So about a few years ago, back when I was living in Tampa with my ex, right? And when that shooting happened, the night pole shooting over there in Orlando.
Yeah.
But there
I
was
was
a
there.
bitch.
Yeah.
There was a.
I mean, I wasn't there, but yeah, I've read all about it. Yeah,
No,
of course.
man, you weren't in there.
Hopefully, hopefully, I was. God bless those souls, man. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry those
yeah,
guys went through what they went through,
yeah.
man.
That's just
I,
crazy.
and I'll knock on wood every day. I'm praying for those souls, and I
Yeah,
did, throughout that time, dude. It
yeah.
was
So
tough.
what happens? Because my ex actually used to go to that club with one of her friends, who's a gay dude, right? And all girls. So my gay friends. No, but no, but she went over there with one of her friends. And actually, I'm really cool with him too. Is one of our friends, super cool dude. He's from our old school, by the way. But so she felt a little connection to that, and the whole thing that happened. So we went to I'll speed this up. So we went to a vigil that was held in Tampa, and so we went to Tampa. It was right there in Ybor City in this lot in Tampa, and they just held a visual. The Tampa Fire Department, the Hillsborough Fire Department, which Hillsborough County is the county that Tampa's in, came through, and they did this whole beautiful thing where they put like a gay the gay flag up, and they said, and a bunch of things. People were donating water bottles. People were donating money. I donated money and whatever. They had these speeches. People coming in that were in the gay community or
Right.
LGBT community. And at the very end of this whole thing, right? At the very end of this whole thing is, and this whole thing is like the city put police out, barricades out, the whole
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah, yeah. It was a whole thing. Everybody was blocked off, and there was a whole like almost parade kind of situation.
At the very end, and someone said, one of the public officials said, okay, we want to thank the fire department, we want to thank the police department. We also want to do a special thanks to the Traficante family for letting us use their lot to do this. And then boom, that everything
What?
ended. And I'm thinking to
What?
myself, and I'm like, shit, that's how deep, like, and that's the type of way, the way that like these families are deeply embedded, not just like with criminal organizations, but they're so smart to be embedded and
Well,
integrated with like city officials and
let
like
me let me also say this. Let me also say this because I think we really started hearing, and there was a red alert when they started to make a name for themselves. When they started to either cover ground, it's like all right, let's picture it like any country who's trying to cover land. You know what I mean? They're dominating, they're conquering, and then whatever the case may be, and that's where you see the red alert out of these mafia families when they're starting to make a name for themselves, when they're starting to gain respect, when they're starting to lay down their lines in their territories. But here's where they get concreted into the history. Here's where they start to set a legacy for themselves. Is when, for example, I don't know if you knew this or not, but most of the garbage work is distributed by the mafia in New York. In
yeah,
New York, anyway.
yeah, the
You know what I mean?
waste management.
And to this day, waste management is handled, from what I hear. I mean, I don't really know. Obviously, they probably made it a company, made it a legit, but they've embedded themselves now into a legitimized situation, and now the mafia is just running rampant, not doing legal stuff. Now, does that do you think that might dissuade the fact that the mafia had any ties with the feds? No, I don't think so, Alex. And I'm gonna tell you why. The reason that they were able to run as free as they were, or to impose their will, if you would, was because they had at least some leniency. I don't know. I don't know if they had
I
some leniency, but they definitely had some ties with the
they
FBI.
I mean, I think it's just that and this is what I admire about the Italian mob so much. Like, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to like, say,
Glorify them, glorify
think
them, or
I
whatever.
was looking for glorify. I'm not trying to glorify like the heinous crimes that they have done and all that, but I mean, one thing I do admire is like I mean, they are very smart. And like and this is what I would consider a hack. They found a hack. They hacked the system. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like, and
The
it's and
social system. The social system.
yeah, yeah, they hack the system. I mean, they find just very clever ways to just make money and make it in a way that's like, okay, it's criminal, but at the same time, it's like some of it's like so
It's
it's like
genius.
loopholes. It's like
It's genius.
loopholes. Yeah, it's like fine. Like they're good at. I mean, there's classic crimes like bootlegging and robbing and whatnot. That those are just like obvious. Like, that's a crime.
And
But then there's like
they adapted with the change.
but
They
but
adapted with
but
humanity.
but the one the crimes that yeah but the crimes that like that just fascinate me are the clever schemes and crimes and fraud that they come out with that like and this is probably a whole book of what they done and all that and I mean it's just what they tied to, dude. So Frank Sinatra, you love Frank Sinatra. Well,
Yeah, yeah. And I know he had a big tie with the mafia for
oh,
sure.
oh, big time, yeah, definitely. And back in the day of Lucky Luciano fucking loved them, and they had this conference. Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lasky, and a bunch of other Italian mobsters, and some Jewish as well had I think I don't know, but had this conference in Cuba, but they covered it up and they said that oh this was just us celebrating having a celebration and Frank Sinatra came over and he was just going to be the entertainment, but Frank Sinatra was very well in like allegedly very well embedded with a lot of these mobsters,
Yeah.
and even to the point where it's alleged that that Frank Sinatra had some of his old pals back in his old like I think he lived in Jersey. I'm not sure exactly where he lived in Hoboken or whatever. Like, but his some of his old boys back in the day that are now like they're now mobsters. They carried out a hit on another mobster, and Frank Sinatra was kind of like the one that was kind of like the liaison,
Like
the liaison between it. And he did like I
the
mean,
middleman, basically, right?
do yourself a favor and look and watch a documentary on Frank Sinatra in his life. It is fucking insane, bro. Like,
Oh,
I mean, he's gang. That's just gangster as fuck, yo. You see a lot of these gangsters out here, or whatever, like these like artists or whatever. This motherfucker is a
Well,
G.
I'm sure this is something that you can appreciate because a lot of the things that are in these movies that we keep seeing out of Martin Scorsese, he I mean you can honestly agree that he can tell a story. That
Oh, for
man
sure.
can tell a story, and not only that, but get an Oscar for it.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and one of the things he portrayed in Goodfellas, and these are kind of the 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 situation, the schemes that you said you could appreciate, was these mastermind fucking schemes. And one of the things that he portrayed was in Goodfellas when he was talking about Jimmy, which was Robert De Niro at that time, Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci were in on a scheme where they were robbing a jewelry store, and that was called the Lufthansa heist.
Hmm.
Okay, and this was an actual heist, bro, and
Oh yeah.
not only this was the biggest heist ever stolen in America. Okay, it's an estimated amount of $5.8 million, equivalent to right now in this day and age, it's $23 million in 2019. But it's 5 million in cash and about 875,000 in jewelry, making it the largest robbery in America at that time. And the Lufthansa heist is what it was called. Now, it was portrayed in Goodfellas. To this day, I think the guy who actually masterminded got arrested recently because he just was found out. I don't know if it was 2015 or 16 or something like that when he was finally arrested. But let me see. Hold on. True. It was 2015. 2015. After it was done in 2000 in 1979. After I don't know how many years. You do the math. 2015 versus 1979. The man finally. I mean, that's a mastermind kind of heist, bro. That's something else.
Yeah, yeah, that's just insane, dude. Just the amount of money they would get, and like this is like, you know, this is not even like I mean, of course, like dealing drugs, you can get like like drug like kingpins and all that. They probably made a lot more money, but this is just money that was like this really impressed me. Money that like they got through these very clever heists, or very clever schemes, and and it didn't even have to include drugs. It was like these schemes that like I don't know, like I would have never even thought of. If you look up Michael Franceschi, he's the son of another mobster. He's a made man. And he's also son of another mobster, whose father was in jail for a long time. He actually did this a gasoline boot. I'm looking at it right now. Gasoline bootlegging. Like so, it was like this scheme that he did that defrauded the federal government out
No
of these
way.
like taxes. I mean, it's just this very like clever, deep scheme that like that he cleverly just got away with, and like him and whoever he was working with got away. They made fucking so much money out that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Bro, I gotta
as
tell you, man. Listen, as much deal, like I gotta tell you right now, there's no bigger criminal, there's no bigger motherfucker that's laughing his ass to the bank than the federal government. That is for damn sure. The federal government handles our taxes, gets a piece off of every single American that's in this country, and I gotta tell you, if that's not the biggest mobster, I don't know what is, bro.
I mean, you gotta specify what you mean when you say the federal government. That can mean
Well, I
many
mean
things.
the feds. I mean the banks. I
So
mean the
you
guy who gives who
so
gives Congress the loans.
the Federal Reserve
The
now.
Federal Reserve.
I'm a
That's who I'm talking
I'm
about.
a big skeptic. You know me. I'm a big skeptic on conspiracies. Typically when I hear conspiracy, especially when they say in certain ways, I'm like, I don't know,
Well,
whatever it is.
there's a
That,
difference between
but
conspiracy theory and conspiracy.
what I was about to say is that when I took when I took macroeconomics, whatever, I learned about how there's just a basic the basic structure of how economics works, and especially in America, the different economic systems, and learned about the Federal Reserve, and I learned about how that works, and how that's in the role that it plays in in American economics. That I thought to myself, and I won't even say it's a far stretch that That should, you know what I'm saying? That should is that you know not the ideal. The Federal Reserve is a fraud, but what could happen as you know what I'm saying? I think if the ideal, I get the idea, understand the idea. The ideal makes sense, but if you have people who are corrupt in there, I mean, the power that they have is fucking ridiculous, bro.
Oh,
It is
listen,
crazy.
listen. To this day, I don't know if you know this or not, but not even the president of the United States, is allowed into the Federal
Yeah,
Reserve building.
because it's supposed to be politically isolated, and any member of the Federal Reserve is supposed to be supposed to be registered as a not registered as Democrat or Republican or any other party at that for at least 7 years. That's one of the requirements of being like being a member or one of the head members of the Federal Reserve. They
Right,
cannot be a part of a political party because they're
right.
supposed to be politically isolated, which to me makes sense. To me, the way the Federal Reserve works, that's an ideal thing. But the thing is, I mean, you can't trust humans. You know,
Well,
like you
listen,
can
and
trust
that's
humans, but
why.
not all the time. You know, it's
Well,
just like
that's what I'm saying. Listen, this is an establishment that if you even if you could track back to Thomas Jefferson, like he tried to intermediate between the Congress and not to intermingle the two. He wanted never to let the Federal Reserve in, and there was a reason for that. It was because there was obviously going to be a certain amount of control, which there is now to this day. There was a there I don't remember the time or the year when the Federal Reserve was actually allowed to intermingle with government affairs, but there was a time when both of them became one. And Thomas Jefferson fought to his damn soul until the breath that he gave till he died to not let them in. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a reason why I see these mobsters getting away with this shit as heroes, bro. Because it defies the
oh
control.
yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, so for some reason, crime and like the criminal underworld, especially in America, I mean, it's a very American thing. It's so glorified because you know, like I feel
Yeah.
like it to me, I guess, and I'm always I'm fascinated by it because for the simple fact, especially when criminal anything that's criminal like related that gets so far and so deep. So I just think these people are just I guess what fascinates me, what glorifies it with me, is just the wit. You know what I'm saying? How smart these people are. These are people who, these are top people within these criminal organizations that had a big contribution to some of the things that we're talking about. If these people had been like heads of corporations, these people had been people in the government and applied that same fucking intelligence and drive and all that to whatever they were doing, they would have been on the top of their game. These are people who are just on the top of their game. These are just individuals that just had that drive, that intelligence, and that motivation to fucking fight and be the best and better than anyone else. But they happen to chose a life of crime, and it just happened to get them that far. And it's supposed to never even get that far in the first place, but the fact that it does, you know what I'm saying, it's just fascinating to me, you know what I'm saying? And
Super.
to and the thing is, there's still shit going on now. There's still a lot of shit going on now. I think now a lot more is a focus on a lot, the drug market and also the fraud. You know what I'm saying? I think if you would think about like what the Italian mobsters and Italian like families and mafias into now, it's probably they're related to fraud. Maybe they're not, what they're doing is really is fraud is related to fraud and related to the a lot of it's also which brings up another crazy thing is hacking hacking people's informations. A lot of
You
people's
think
who
the Italian mob is involved in hacking people's information?
I mean, I think the Italian mob certainly is involved with crimes that's integrated with technology. But when it comes down to hacking and hacking people's information, I think that the Russian mob, and not even Russian mob here in America, but I think the criminal organizations in Russia have a lot more of this. Because what happens is that, and this is brings us to another whole fucking spider web of things. This is Nelson. There is I took a class called ethical hacking, right? There is a whole there's a whole underground of hackers. There's a whole scene going on that we don't even know, bro. Like I mean, unless you know about it, like it's a whole thing going on. And what happened is um a lot of hackers who are able to hack people's information, credit card information, social security, whatever. What they do is that they hack a bunch of those. They get a bunch of credit cards, bunch of social security, a bunch of people's information. They get it, bundle it up, and they sell that to criminal
Right.
organizations. Those criminal
That's on the
organizations,
black market. Yeah.
yeah, and then they sell it on the black market or what we know now as the deep web,
The
the dark
deep
web,
web.
and
Yep.
it's insane, bro. It's
Well,
insane.
listen. I think we've talked about a lot of important shit today, and I'm very glad to have you on it.
Grazie,
Grazie.
grazie.
All right, buddy. Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in, and please, Alex, let them know what they should do.
Y'all should subscribe, like, and comment, and tell this motherfucker Nelson that
You ain't shit.
You an ugly motherfucker, dog.
Say something, bro. Say something. Hey, Alex, thank you for everything. Thanks for joining us here on the Shock Treatment Podcast, and it's been a pleasure.
All right, cool, man. Fun conversations, bro.
God bless you. Fuck you, dude.
Go fuck yourself.
All right, take it easy.
All right, peace. I'll see you soon.
Peace, bitch.